Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick here, dropping in on you. Hope everybody is having an unbelievable start to your week. I hope that you are prepared to do the things in life that will push you ahead. Remember, no matter where you're at, if you're still breathing, you're still in the fight, but you have to remember something that nothing gets done if you don't apply yourself and if you don't take action. You cannot sit around waiting on someone else to respond to your needs, your desires, your aspirations, your focus, and whatever. It's about putting in work. If you don't take anything from the things I share from you as a professional, as a member of the Black community, as a therapist, as a psychologist, as a life coach, put in the work. No change comes by complaining. No change comes by pointing fingers of blame. Change comes by looking at a need and addressing it actively. And I want to talk to you. Yesterday, we did the first part of the state of Black America, and we talked about the need for the Black family. We talked about the importance of healing both Black men and Black women. We talked about the impact of our divisiveness on building collective and generational wealth. We talked about serial forced displacement, the miseducation of Black youth. Today, I want to start with socioeconomic frustration. Um, And before I do, I want to point to the fact that we are still in the middle of a fundraiser uh, for what we do in the community, uh, from Black Men Lead to Restoring Ghetto's Forgotten Daughters to the Black Empowerment Initiative and other wraparound services for the community. Matter of fact, I received an email last night of a 52-year-old Black man with a son. That is in a challenge and needs help finding a place. And that's something we're working on now. That's a wraparound service. Normally, the wraparound service is for 4 to 30, but like I tell you, there are times that we extend it beyond that age because we don't want to leave anyone behind. Obviously, the brother, without talking too much about his business, I don't want people to kind of who may know it and know him uh, click in on it. But I mean, uh, he's had some challenges in the past. He has his son, which actually makes it challenging to place him. It's different for men with kids than it is for women with kids. And there are some other things, but he needs help, and that's the ultimate thing: is he needs help. We've all been there in different ways, in different places, and so this is just some of what we do, and we need your support. There's a young lady that we're going to be bringing to you that suffered incest at an early age. And she came to me over a year ago, and we reached out and we worked with her. And she's come back now and says she wants to tell her story. And so my partner Tiffany and I are going to be bringing her to you so that she can tell her story. We do the work. Um, there are people that come to me, literally are brought to me, come to me, referred to me daily. And honestly, we don't have the resources. The community doesn't support it. The government doesn't support it. Anything that actually works, and when I do something, it works because I put in the work. I do the research. I gain an understanding. That's why I do what I do, is because I understand it, not because I'm smarter than anybody, not because of anything else, except I'm just diligent. I want to know the answer to the problem. And I'm not going to sit around and spend my time whining and complaining. I'm going to spend my time finding the answer. And that's what I've done with Black Men Lead. That's the problem you're talking about. You're talking about all these boys running around wreaking havoc and terrorizing the hood, socializing. I'm telling you, it works. I'm telling that all they needed was somebody to give them a purpose before they got to that point, and they wouldn't have never gotten there. And then you still have to deal with the ones that are there. That's what we do. But we need your support. Go into the description box, click the link, and show some love. Or you can give through the organization's Cash App handle, which is also in the description box. One more disclaimer. I made this disclaimer in yesterday's video. I'm going to do it again. I'm not Captain Soundbite. If you're looking for a 2-minute flash in the pan that you think you can take and change the world with, I'm not that person. I've spent enough time in my life achieving things, helping people achieve things, and tackling problems to understand that you got to have a comprehensive understanding of any challenge or any problem in order to develop and create a solution. Sound bites sound good. They may get you emotionally charged. They may have a ring to them, but if they don't have specific, direct details on how to move forward and how to address it, how to look at it, it's not going to get you very far. So I'm not the soundbite person. So if you're looking for sound bites, this is not the spot. Now, let's start with socioeconomic frustration. Socioeconomic frustration is actually the lack of something we talked about yesterday: economic fluidity, the building of generational wealth, the ability to be autonomous in society without being dependent upon someone else for the things that we need, much less the things that we desire. And so the socioeconomic frustration comes in because we are consistently at the bottom rung of the socioeconomic ladder, meaning that we are consistently dependent upon entities that are created to give us just enough to keep most comfortable and to give just enough of the rest that there's not enough to utilize to create something different. So you get enough to pay your bills, you get enough to go see the doctor, you get enough whatever in many instances, but there's not enough to create an avenue through which you can become independent. And so you're consistently having to play the game of being where they want you to be, doing what they want you to do, and being compliant in the means and the ways that they want you to be compliant in order to get the crumbs that they give you. This leads to what I call socioeconomic frustration. And it leaves you where you cannot function autonomously. You can't do the things that you desire to do. You can't really control the economic and educational arm that will influence your children's lives because you are caught up in a cycle of dependency. And what we have to understand is that if we're going to break the cycle of dependency, we have to do it on a unified level. Those of us who have some level of success must be willing to invest ourselves financially, uh, academically, on an educational level, on a social level, on a community activist level, on a resource level where we're literally giving our skills and our time to situations. But we're going to have to be willing to do that. We're going to have to get past the apathy of indifference that has been developed over time to where we don't see or feel the pain of others as long as we're doing okay. That is not a good state of mind to be in when we're talking about empowerment. And what we must understand, there's constantly evidence being presented where we can see with great clarity that no matter how much money you obtain, no matter how much money you get, there will be a time where you will get a reality check and they will show you that you don't have an absolute run in the same way that they do. You can ask Bill Cosby, you can ask quite a few others that when they get ready to check you, when they get ready to snatch you off the pedestal that they put you on because you were doing something that made them money or serving a purpose that kept them in power and in play, that they handle you. The bottom line is you're still black, is the message. And if that's the case, why not invest ourselves into each other? While we are not all going through this struggle at the same place with the same challenges, our blackness guarantees that there are some challenges. Now, obviously, if you've got enough money, you can circumvent a lot of the things. If you've got enough money, you don't have to worry about those traffic stops in the hood for nothing because you don't have to be in the hood. You don't live there. If you got money, you can hire an attorney to fight back in some instances, and in many instances win, and maybe even enrich yourself. But At the end of the day, there will be times when you will get cornered and you will be just as black as the kid in the hood who gets pulled over and shot just for being black. And that's something that we must understand if we're ever going to overcome this socioeconomic pressure, the socioeconomic inaptitude and lack of fluidity in this socioeconomic frustration that we experience because we have no economic power. We have no economic power because we don't pool resources. We don't practice Black group economics. And I'm not just talking about buying from Black business owners. I'm talking about investing in the creation of businesses that serve the markets that we operate in. I mentioned this, I believe, yesterday or a couple of days, but I mentioned this, that there's absolutely no way that we are spending 90% of the revenue that's flowing through a $15 billion beauty supply industry. 96% of that revenue is generated by Black people. We own 3% of the businesses because we haven't understood the power of Black group economics practice vertically. And people ask me, well, what do you mean about vertical group economics? Well, if you look at any other group, the Jews, the Arabs, the Latinos, whites, and then whites can be broken down into sectors because they do practice unclaved sectors on a micro level. You have Irish, you have German, you have, and they'll do that. But the whiteness gives them a general universal covering that comes with a certain level of exemption from a lot of the things that everyone has to deal with. But each one of those groups tend to operate in what we call a vertical sphere. In other words, they spend money within their community until they have to come out. And a vertical sphere is like this. In every industry, there are vertical entities, vertical mechanisms. In retail, for instance, you own a retail business. That is the retail level, but there's also distribution. Then there's manufacturing. Well, the way that Blacks have been pushed out of the beauty supply industry is that Blacks don't own distribution and Blacks don't own manufacturing. Manufacturing and distribution has been primarily dominated by Asians. So guess what happens? The Asian retailers are getting better price deals than the Black retailers who are trying to start businesses. And so on price alone, the Asians are more competitive, and we all understand that not even our own people are going to patronize us when there's a better price across the street. So then what must we do? We must literally invest in creating distribution channels and manufacturing channels so that we have the supply, we control supply, and we're able to meet demand at the retail level. Now we are able to compete, and now we can literally set up in geographical position to challenge the Asians in our community that are drafting out the Black dollar. Because see, we have a problem in our community where within 6 hours of entering the community by way of paycheck or a direct deposit, within 6 hours it's gone. Why? Because we have all these outside entities set up within the community to take it. You have the Asian nail shop, you have the Arab gas station, you have the Arab liquor store, you have the Asian cleaners. Everything that you need is owned by someone else. And by the time you get through taking care of all the stuff you got to do, the grocery store, by the time you do all that, your money has gone back out of the Black community as quicker than you earned it to come into the community. And it has not served the community. It has not invested in any Black businesses. It has not invested in any Black educational institutions. It has not invested in any residential development. It has not done any of that. It's simply gone out into other entities that do not have the interests of our community at heart, and they will use it to enrich themselves, to empower and strengthen their communities so that they can continue to exploit ours. We will consistently have these socioeconomic frustrations until we decide that we're going to actually come together as a unit and function as a unit. that we don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to have the same background. We don't have to be at the same socioeconomic or academic level. But what we do have to realize is that we are a part of the same experience. And that means that we have to find a way to work together. We have to find a way to build together. We have to find a way to support the things that give us the best chance to come out of it. That's a problem. Mass incarceration. That goes back to something I talked about yesterday as on part one as well. And that is a great deal of mass incarceration can be traced right back to the fact that we're not properly socializing young Black males. That's what Black Men Lead is all about. That's why I consistently push for people to support it, because it's easier, it seems to me, to sit up and complain about what they're doing than to actively invest in them, to give them options outside of what they're doing. We don't understand what they're doing because we haven't invested. That's why I did. I invested decades of understanding African American adolescent and young adult male violence. What's driving the violence? Well, I studied. I found out there are five primary contributors that at some level contribute to the proclivity towards violence for African American adolescent and young adult males. The first is what we call urban hassle. Urban hassle is being in an inner city environment. There's urban hassle. Gunfire at night, ambulances and sirens at night. If you live in the Midwest or on the East Coast, L trains at night, rattling the apartments, having to navigate through drug activity and gang activity just to get to and from school. Um, those are just some of the urban hassles that takes a kid and puts them more on edge and increases the chances and risks that at some point they're going to commit a violent act. The next is being a victim of violence, increases the risk of at some point they're going to become violent. The next is experiencing or seeing or watching or observing violence. If there's violence in the home, if there's violence in the community, if they're seeing people being harmed through violence at some point, the chances are the risks go up that they're going to be violent. But the last two are the ones you pay attention to, because if you're in the inner city, until we can do something about what's going on, you're going to have urban hassle and you're going to see violence. So what can we change? Well, the number two most powerful influence on whether a Black male, a young Black male, adolescent or young adult male will commit violence is if they've been socialized or not, if they've been properly racially socialized or not. Have they been socialized into manhood? Do they know who they are as an individual and as part of the collective? Do they know their responsibilities? Do they know their roles? Have they been developed from an early age to understand what's expected of them and why they're so important to the development and the strength of the community? Or have they been left to themselves? That's going to play a major role. That's the one that can be controlled the most, is socializing the kids. If you look at any other enclave, any other racial collective, the Jews, the Arabs, on that, all of their boys have rite of passages, except us. We're just figuring it out. We don't even know how to define manhood. That's why I did the 5 P's of manhood. That's why that's a part of Black Men Lead, is to define manhood in a way that it's clear. We don't need an ambiguous sliding scale of manhood. We need an absolute definitive understanding of what's expected of the men in our community. Are you a protector? Are you a provider? Are you promoting the ones that you cover to elevate, edify, and empower them? The people in your home should feel more exposed to opportunity because you're in the home and you're covering them. Are you a priest? Are you the active go-to between God and your family? Are you a prophet? Meaning that, are you speaking power into and over your family? That's it. You're not causing the people in your world any harm. You are making their world better because of your presence. You're not terrorizing the community. You are covering the community. You are investing your mind, your energy, your finances into building something powerful. You are projecting your values, interests, and principles forward into generations to come by being present, visible, active, and influential in your community. That needs to be socialized into every Black male. That's why we start them off at 4 years old. By the age of 12, they've been significantly socialized into a paradigm of power, business ownership. When you own your own, you don't have to beg for an opportunity. You can control the level of your income by improving your value, your quality, and your service of whatever it is, what skill you hold. You have the ability to do that. Stop expecting someone else to pay you what you're worth when you can build it and own it and control it and pay yourself. You're never going to lay yourself off. You're never going to fire yourself. You never, if, and then once you learn your business, once you master your craft, you can always find ways to increase revenue because you are the person that's pulling the strings. We teach that. They need to know. They need to know that while there can be benefits to the pursuit of academic accolades, I'm probably one of the ones that'll tell you, hey, I've done it, but I can see clearly now that I've done it, that everything that I've accomplished, I could have still accomplished. Does having credentials open a few doors for me a little easier? Absolutely. I just happen to be a learner. I just happen to be an avid learner. I just happen to be a person that literally gets a kick out of learning stuff. So it was an easy path for me. Plus, I was able to navigate that path without ever having to collect and accumulate any debt. So it wasn't a measurement of how much am I going to have to get back to make this make sense. It was, hey, I got an opportunity to do something. I'm going to do it. That's not for everybody. We need to be aware. We need to have men in the community and women in the community that are aware and understand this. In both of my books on education, The Miseducation of Black Youth in America and Academic Apartheid, I talk in great detail about the importance of holistic education. We've missed that. We've missed it and we don't understand it. In both books and in all lectures, I define educating a Black youth as a holistic process in which we empower and prepare young Black youth to be able to go out into a world that's inherently hostile towards them and not only compete, but win. That's not happening on a grand scale. Yesterday, I told you in a separate video about the fact that we are struggling in the area of literacy. That literally 85% of students, African American students, are not reading at a level of proficiency, meaning they're not reading at close to their grade level. So in essence, proficiency is at least reading one grade level behind or on grade level or above grade level. So we've got 85% that are at least 2 grade levels behind. We have an average literacy proficiency of 8th grade. If we poll all Blacks and we look at them, we're looking at a reading proficiency of an 8th grade level, and we understand why it's difficult for us to understand, and we have no real passion to read. But see, the problem is advancement and growth comes from reading and understanding. It's one of the ways that they have been able to successfully hold back from us and to successfully manipulate and control us. It's because we cannot gain and comprehend what's happening by way of study. We balk at study. We find it amusing for the people who do. We sit up and say, that's not for me. But the problem is, if you were to actually study, you will find that the most successful in this the most successful people in this country are also the most read people in this country. The top 5% of high performers in this country read 4 books a month. The average American, regardless of race, reads 1 book a year. And so if there's an average of 1 book a year, how many aren't reading any? Because that's an average. That means there are some people reading more but there's also some people reading less. So how many people aren't reading any books? How many of those people look like us? That's a problem. And that's another thing that we deal with at the Odyssey Project. That's another thing we deal with within the Black Men Lead Rite of Passage Initiative and the wraparound services is we push literacy. We push the ability to learn and develop new ideas, critical thought. And it's absolutely quintessential that we continually develop the minds of our young Black boys if we expect them to move into the roles that they hold. It's also equally important that we give true identity and awareness and worth to our daughters. Because I have a lot of young women and older women who are struggling with their identity, their self-image, their self-esteem, their self-confidence because of things that have happened to them as far back as their childhood. And literally, I have multiple women over 60 still struggling with childhood incest. I've had for clients for years. They have improved drastically, but it was so caked in and so much stuff followed. Because see, if you don't deal with the healing, the life that follows would be chaos. And so you're not just dealing with what happened as a child, you're dealing with the fallout of it and trying to work through that and trying to figure out what can be salvaged of the life and what brightness can come out of what's left. And to sit there and see that and know that that's happening and we're not doing anything about it and that we have the ability to do something about it, but it's going to require the commitment of our people to come together. I've been asking for support for Black Men Lead specifically to reach a goal of $10,000 since December. It's not that we haven't reached it to $10,000 that's like crazy, because the support has never been there. It's the fact that we haven't reached 1,000. On the flip side, the people are still coming in. And that puts the pressure on me to be the resource and to give and to do and to do something to me that is extremely difficult. And that's to decide who gets it and who doesn't. And I haven't been good at that. So I'm always trying to find out how everybody can be taken care of. Puts me in a very precarious situation. But here I am, and I will continue to do whatever I can for my people. But the problem with this is, excuse me, I'm in my office and this automatic light, because I'm behind my computer, it doesn't see me, so the sensor can't see me moving, so it keeps cutting the light off. Anyway, look, we could talk a lot about a bunch of things, and I'm going to keep sharing with you. I'm going to keep giving you as much of what I have as I can on a regular basis. You got to understand, I'm disseminating 30 years of research, program development, community engagement, and more. What I want to do is I want to challenge everybody who watches this video to give. Don't pass the buck. Don't sit up and say, I hope somebody gives. It's in your, it's right now, the ball is in your court. You can be a difference maker to give. This is something I'm doing. I am relaunching the Inner Sanctum. The Inner Sanctum is a think tank of people who have expertise in areas of finance, in areas of real estate, in areas of banking, in areas of education, in areas of relationship development, relationship cultivation, and other areas that are going to be essential to pulling the community together. I told you at the beginning of the video in part one, if we don't restore the family, we lose. Why? Because the family is where the values, interests, and principles that serve us are inculcated into the minds of our youth at an early enough age that they can become embedded and that they can be safe and anchored by the time they walk into a system that's going to try to rip it out of them and reprogram them. But what I'm telling you is the family's got to be there. I want to find a way to invite people I may not know in. And one of the ways that I'm going to do that is anybody who uh, donates to the work we're doing, $100 or more, you will be invited into the inner sanctum. We are going to be coming together at the beginning of June, and we are going to find a way to sit down. We need to create a network, a national network, where we are properly socializing young Black boys through a rite of passage initiative so that Black manhood becomes a universal understood awareness and not something somebody can come on and make up who's of high value, who's not, who is a man and who's not. You know, people just declaring they are man because they no. There needs to be a universal understanding that when you do this, and this, that's when you have met the measure of manhood. And it doesn't mean you're perfect. I'm not perfect. I haven't been perfect in any state. I've been pretty good in a lot. Despite where I'm at right now, I think I was an exceptional husband, uh, a dedicated, committed father to my adult children, which most of them are now, and the couple that's left behind driving me nuts, spending all my money. I think I've been a good father, but I know one thing I've been and consistently will be is accessible. I'm not perfect, but I'm accessible. No one can say they can't get to me, that they don't have access to me, uh, and that I won't come full fledged to give them anything and everything I can to be of service and of help. I don't co-sign BS. Not gonna give you a pass on BS. And so sometimes me and the older ones fall out. But as soon as they want to come, I'm right here. So all that being said, it's not the perfect person. There is no perfect person. It's the person committed to seeing what's necessary and needed in their role and stepping into it. And we have to have a culture of supporting one another. We have to have a culture of loving one another. That's a big problem. We have problems loving one another because we have problems loving ourselves. We don't talk about it. We don't want to admit it, but we don't love us. You can't love yourself when you're constantly trying to look like somebody else. You don't love yourself when you're constantly trying to fit the mold that someone else set. You don't love yourself when you can't see the beauty of who you are as an individual and as a group. And when you don't love yourself, it's hard to see something to love in another person that looks like you. So you're looking outside of yourself for validation, and they are never going to openly, adequately validate you to a point that will empower you. No matter who you are, no matter what you do for them, they will only utilize you. And a lot of times they will utilize you to keep the others down. You know, we've got plenty of them out there saying, just pull yourself up by your bootstrap. I made it. If I can make it, why you over there? You can't make it. Well, maybe I don't want to sell out my people. Maybe I don't want to sit up and be like BLM and act like I'm just so radical about fighting for the lives of Black males who have died when I have the highest contempt for all the Black men that are living. Um, maybe, you know, we need to find love, and we need to find it authentically, and we need to find it within ourselves, and we need to instill it in our youth before the world has access to them. I remember talking to a friend. As a matter of fact, she's a friend, but we also, Dr. Blanchard and I interviewed her on the teachers, and we talked to Latava about how she reared her 8 kids, and we laughed and we talked. And one of the things that just totally blew my mind is when we were talking, she was talking about how her children, especially the older children, were old enough to communicate and talk and remember when they saw their first white person. She homeschooled them all. She kept them isolated from anything that would harm them or tell them something about themselves that they were not. By the time they saw white people, they knew who they were. They knew they were beautiful. And you know, and I watch them. And then in order for them to graduate high school in her homeschool, every last one of them had to start a business at the end of their junior year and run it successfully until they graduated. Every last one of them doing something. They drive her crazy because they're kids and they're gonna go out and do something. I don't care how well you train your kid. There's gonna be that moment when uh you're gonna say go left, and they're gonna sit up and say, man, why would I want to go left? I'm going right. Just because you told me to go left, I'm going right. The kids are gonna do that. That's their way of liberating themselves. But the truth of the matter is, the more you prepare them, you know that when times get rough, when times become difficult, that they will rise to the occasion, because what they need is instilled in them at such a deep level that it will instinctively come out. And that's what we need to do. We need to do it with our Black boys. We need to do it with our Black girls. We need to really, really push the importance of coming together in relationships, that we need to parent with both parents in the home, because there's a need for both masculine and feminine energy. We talked about the family yesterday. If you want to listen to that in depth, you need to go back and check that out. But we have a need. And what I want to do is I want to really bring some minds together. And if you've lived long enough, you've got something to bring to the table. If you've experienced life in this country long enough, you've got something to bring to the table. And I want committed people. And that's why I'm saying those that are actually that will actually donate $100. Now, there may be a time that we come across each other, or you communicate to me in email and you haven't donated, but I hear what you have to say and say, okay, yes, I want you to come in. Uh, I like what you have to offer. I have or to contribute. But right now, I'm looking for people who will show their committedness beyond the like button, beyond subscribing. Don't get me wrong. I need you to subscribe. If you're actually new and you haven't subscribed, subscribe, because I bring things in a number of different ways. Yes, we are having this monologue right now. Well, we kind of have a dialogue because I'm watching you guys communicate right here to the to in the chat. But um, then I'm going to come with inspiration and empowerment for personal application, because we are only as good or as strong as our weakest link. So we need to empower individuals so that when we come together as a collective, we're that much stronger and we're that much wiser. And we have people who can sit down and put their brains together and come up with solutions. We cannot consistently and continually go on in the pace in the way that we're going and actually expect to achieve empowerment. It doesn't happen that way. I'm sorry. Um, Complaining does not produce results. Whining does not produce results. Protesting with no economic underwriting or backup does not produce results. You protesting and you don't have an economic switch that you can hit when they don't respond to your protests are the equivalent of a collective temper tantrum. You just showing them you're mad and they don't care. But if you sit up and you protest and they know, man, if we don't go meet this, the next thing is going to be they're going to start redirecting their dollars. And the thing is, if we actually start building our own, we don't even have to talk about we don't have to talk about boycotting. The most powerful way to boycott is to have your own. And you don't even have to talk about pulling money, because the money is where it's supposed to be in the first place. You immediately create a mechanism of power when you decide to become autonomous and build your own. But if we want the next generation to be so focused that they're building their own on an astronomical level, we have to start early. That's where I'm pushing for. Black girls, Black boys, mass incarceration. That's another thing that I got started on and got kind of away from. But bottom line, if we properly socialize these kids, they're less likely to drop out of school. Well, we know that's a big plus. Why? Because high school dropouts are what, 5 times more likely to end up incarcerated. So we reduce their risk of going to jail by keeping them in school, because they're properly socialized, because they're properly prepared. And it's not just the public school system, it's completing an education. So we don't have to necessarily send them to public school, but we need to educate them, because in educating them, if they're properly educated, they're also properly prepared, they're properly empowered. And so they go out and now they understand that poverty isn't their lot in life. Poverty isn't some death sentence. They're not here on this earth just to survive or just to exist. They're actually here to make a difference. They're actually here to be a part of solutions and empowerment. They're actually here to make their presence felt. And so then they go out and they understand that I don't have to steal to eat. I don't have to sell drugs to feed my family. I can get out here and start the right company and move way more uh, revenue than even if I was moving weight, if I was moving bricks. There's ways. Everybody has a value. One of the things that I work with in the Black community, in Black Men Lead, and with the girls as well, is I like to help kids find their gift. Um, the book of Proverbs says that your gift will make room for you and bring you before great men. Um, I can say that that's true. I think that one of the blessings that I've had, and I'm almost done. One of the blessings that I've had, poverty is a mindset, Amaru. It's definitely a mindset, something that we have to break, something we have to teach. Um, but I heard, you know, we are in a place right now where we really, really, really need to understand the depth of what we're facing. We need to understand exactly the cost of our inactivity. We have a responsibility to our kids to prepare them. We're not. We have a responsibility to ourselves to ensure that our children are prepared for the future and have what it takes. We're not. We have gotten to a point, as long as it's not negatively affecting me in a way that makes me uncomfortable enough to do something, I'm good. Far too many of us are saying I'm good. And that is where I'm going to actually stop. Um, but we need your support. It's that simple. Those who want to help, contribute, let the buck stop with you. I mean, it's easy to sit up and say somebody else will do it, somebody else will do it. And that's what happens. We do that so often that nobody does it because everybody is saying somebody else is going to do it. That's why I wake up every morning understanding I've got to work so I can feed my family, but I also got to work so that I can put in work in the community. It's a great challenge, but what I will not do is sit idly by and do nothing just because I'm comfortable, just because I know how to make things work for me and mine. I'm not with that. I'm not with that. Some of us, I mean, a lot of us are, obviously, because very few are doing anything. But here's my challenge: be a part of the solution, be actively engaged. If doing something isn't your cup of tea, then fund it. Find somebody that you look at and say, man, I love what they're doing. I love how they do it. I love their commitment. And literally put your money behind them. The thing is, I've known for years, and I've always said this, it's a person. And that person watches my videos. I don't know who it is, but they literally have the ability to sit up and say, hey, I'm going to cut this check. That's going to get you for the next 6 months. And it not even be something that hurts them. But we're just not, enough of us are not cut out for that. Everybody's always thinking somebody else will do it. So everybody's always thinking, oh, he'll figure it out. He always does. He's been doing it this long. He'll figure it out. And no one thinks of the burden that comes with that and how much better I could be if I had support, if I had people backing me up. Uh, Nevertheless, uh, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because not only am I passionate about it, I love it. I said all the time that the first part of my life was about me, proving what I could get, what I could have, how far I can go from where I came from. But the second half of my life is about my legacy. It's about the impact that I make on the world. And my goal is to leave a legacy that's so huge that it speaks of me long after I'm gone. And if I can build that legacy, I will have changed lives. I will have touched lives. I will have healed. I will have helped. And I will have done what God placed me here to do. And that's my focus. So I'm challenging you. Look, stand up and help. And for those of you who can help with $100, uh, thank you. And you will receive an email on how you can join in and become a part of the Inner Sanctum. Um, the Inner Sanctum is a think tank where we're going to hash out, we're going to look at the blueprint. Years ago, I did the blueprint for Black empowerment. I ran it by Dr. Claude Adams and his wife, Joanne, and got their approval and co-sign on it. And for the most part, people will just sit there and they'll go to the website and they'll go all around it. But it's thorough. It needs to be revisited. It needs new eyes. It needs new minds, fresh minds. And I've even asked some of the kids, and kids are unbelievable because you know what? They don't know about limitations yet. You'd be surprised at some of the things you can hear. And I want to keep those minds fresh and anticipatory about what's possible. And so that's where I'm going to leave it. So for those who love what I do, respect what I do, I need your support today. It's no way that we're sitting 6 months down the line and we haven't hit $1,000. It's ridiculous. But on that note, I'm going to get off of here because I have work to do. It's been good talking to you. Share this video, get with people and encourage them. And I am out.